Now, folks, it's time for the science fiction part of the program. Breakthrough in extended reality technologies delivered through lightweight devices such as glasses and new network platform capabilities can enable immersive digital experiences. This panel that you'll meet is presented by Ericsson, and it will elaborate on the coming evolution steps of extended reality technologies. The moderator from Ericsson is the research leader. He is Jonas Kronander, and this is his panel. I'll hand over to you, Jonas. Give them a warm welcome.
Imagine a future where your virtual experience is as real as reality itself.
XR over 5G would mean freedom.
I think it's really cool experience, right?
XR over 5G is a project with the aim of changing how we experience virtual realities.
You can cut this cable, then you also offer mobility. That's sort of going to be a big step. The mind boggles at what's possible.
This is going to change everything.
Yes, this is going to change everything, we hope, at least. Welcome to this panel. With me today, I have Magnus Arfors from One Reality. You're the chairman and co-founder of this company. I have Peter Thorngren from, you're the technology strategy leader at Volvo Groups. Mikael Björn, colleague of mine from Ericsson Research. I have Petter Wannerberg, sorry for that, from RISE. You're a research engineer and XR developer. And then also Magnus Leonhardt from Telia, and you're the head of strategy and innovation. So, XR, exciting future, a lot of science fiction talk we heard, but what is it for real that you see in this? What's in it for us, if we'll say it like that? Magnus, what do you see as the vision for the future XR applications or technologies?
Well, it's about value. What we have seen out there in the market with our clients is the enormous value that they can achieve with XR. For example, in the construction industry, where we have a problem with safety, they say that education is one of the most important components to increase safety. So we have done this, and our clients have seen how their co-workers are really changing their behavior for the better when they have been through 45 minutes of XR education. And then they tell me that this is what they really want to become mobile, which means that we will not anymore need a computer with a strong graphics card there on the spot.
So you're saying that we will need 5G or 6G connectivity?
Definitely, definitely. Mobility.
Yeah. What's your view, Peter?
We are using these systems since a fairly long time. We started using this type of system 10, 15 years ago. We have today probably around 40 different applications. Next week, for example, we're launching a new VR system that will be used by the mechanics, deploying the new electromobility trucks that we are starting selling next week, by the way. But we use it for a lot of applications, from mounting pieces on engines to experiences the network of our products, the trucks, the networks, to training. And something I believe myself a lot in is actually getting it into a more social context. So actually promoting people meeting each other using different kinds of social systems, because our organization is spread all over the world. We are working from 140 different countries, mainly India, United States, Sweden and France.
And then you're talking about VR type of meetings? Or...
Yeah. For example, we could have, which we do have, we have common rooms, VR rooms in Bangalore, Gothenburg, Greensboro, and they are all in the same virtual meeting, in the same mechanical structure, walking around the truck virtually and talking to one another, but from 3 continents.
Very, very interesting. We're also using some sometimes at least VR conferencing at Ericsson Research. So
Yeah, we actually, in my unit, we use it all the time, actually.
okay, yeah, not mine.
But I think of XR as a paradigmatic user interface shift on the scale, actually, of the smartphone. So, I mean, the internet is vast. It's vast. And at the same time, we are digital flat earthers. Because this huge place called the internet, we see on a flat screen. And now we're going to take that interface and wrap it around us as an overlay over the physical world eventually. So that will mean a new era for how you can be a powerful user of the internet. Actually, the smartphone made everyone powerful because it was the first step on a natural user interface journey. You could touch and do things. You didn't have to learn new things. Everyone knows how to touch things. With XR, you will know how to do much more than you do today. And of course, that means also a new era for connectivity because we will do it everywhere.
Definitely. From a XR developer perspective, what are the main challenges? What would you like to see XR evolve? Where?
So it's very interesting to just see this idea of stepping into a completely common social spatial space in this digital realm, and to see that next level, that next layer on top of the internet, and just explore that. And when it comes to the challenges, I think it's going to be what we're talking about, building basically, if we're talking about something like the metaverse, to be building a new layer. And how do we do that? And how do we do it so that it's democratized and able for everyone to do? Right now, if you're someone who works in 3D graphics, for example, perhaps you're really into doing things like Maya or that type of modeling. Not everyone is. But I think the internet became what it became because there was so many tools that started to evolve and made it easier and easier for people to build websites and everything. And we're going to have to see that same type of shift in XR creation, and we are. So.
Very good. And when it comes to it, we mentioned a bit the rationale for mobility, the need for that, and for that we need networks, high capable networks, and Telia is providing that. What is your vision at Telia regarding where XR should evolve and the networks?
First of all, I like to just agree that I think that the biggest value add here is really new value creation for anyone using these type of services. And from a network perspective, I really see that we can use network capabilities in new ways, moving away compute up in the network, for example, ensuring low latency services wherever you happen to be, for example. So that's one piece, using network capabilities in new ways in favor of value creation. The other piece is, I think, is really blown away user experience. Really, I really like us to take a next step, leaving the brick of a telephone behind and separating user and compute in a way so that we can create totally new user experience. I think it's time. We have had this brick in our pockets for what is it, 12, 15 years that we call the iPhone. Why not leave that shape and form and move into something else? So that is something that I really look forward towards from an operator perspective, to have a portfolio of new type of user experiences for industries, but also for the consumer side moving ahead. So I know I answered this a little bit broader than from a network perspective, but in the end, the network is there to provide value creation and user experiences in the end. And that's also why we build our 5G networks, to make that happen moving ahead.
I'm sensing that we're discussing a lot of the current state of the art, basing it on VR experience and not necessarily on AR. But what you're describing is really when we leave the phone behind and go out into the street to have a mixed reality experience. Is that's what do you see as the main challenge to realize that from a network perspective?
I mean, it takes a lot to do what I just said, to separate use and compute, and ensure that you have compute close to use. I mean, we are not there yet, but we are in the research stage, and we are also in a trial stage to really make that happen with. And we do that in a way where we build local networks. We build local compute and edge services today to ensure that Volvo and the forest industry and mining industries and other can actually access these type of services in their research. So. I think that is really what needs to happen to really evolve technology. But it's also about the business models in the end. I think also we need to leave the business models behind that comes with a traditional operator point of view of, charging for bandwidth and capacity in that perspective. So we also need to move into a new paradigm of business models and ecosystems. So there's a lot of things that needs to come in place in order to make these use cases materialize in a good way, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And compute offload that you mentioned, it's one big thing that we're at Ericsson Research doing a lot of research on to enable these headsets and, I don't know, in the future potentially connected lenses without any compute offload. But looking at the mobility and the need for compute, you mentioned in the Magnus, in the introduction that you have a construction site. Can you elaborate a bit on the need for mobility here and the need for connectivity?
Well, it's very important for them to be able to provide quality education on site. And it's also important for them to bring in a teacher that maybe is somewhere else. And maybe other co-workers in other construction sites, so that they can all meet in the same virtual space and learn about safety. So, if we can take away the computer as well and make it...
Because today you're bringing a computer there.
Yes.
To the sites, yeah, okay.
On site. That's more expensive. It's more difficult to handle. And it's not mobile in the same way. There is another example as well about the medical university, Karolinska Institutet, where we have the same type of need. The students, in this case, they get to travel inside the body all the way into a cell, for example. And in the cell, they can meet their teacher. And we know this from physiology that it's very important to understand the microprocesses as they happen. And they need guidance in there. And we're talking about students, they cannot afford either the computer. But it's very important that the network can handle the traffic, the bandwidth, so that the quality experience is still there, because it is the quality experience that drive the quality learning, up to 80% more efficient learning.
Yep, very good. Peter, you mentioned in the break a bit about the forestry industry, and here I can see that it's really out in the forest. We need macro coverage from the networks with high capacity, expect.
Yeah.
Can you describe a bit your use case in that?
Yeah, it's not my main domain.
I know,
but of course, working in forestry, you're far away. You could be in the middle of Amazonas, so it's very far away from support and help. And to have you could be in northern Sweden in a blizzard, trying to load logs with your truck, and instead of climbing out to your truck and going to steer the cranes from the crane pulpit, you will then instead just put on your VR helmet and then control the crane from the passenger side, actually, in this case. Okay, so you don't even have to leave the cabin.
But in that case, it's still a local sort of network.
Yes.
That you
but
need.
turning that application then to other, so similar for drive applications. We have, for example, autonomous maize planters in Brazil that are controlled by operators. They are using sort of VR systems.
Okay. Then you're pretty much using a sensor arrays to recreate a VR environment. Is that correct?
Yeah, but the main thing I would say is that I'm building, my real work is actually as integration leader for autonomous heavy vehicles. And doing that, we are dealing with super expensive system because they cost a lot of millions. And we can't provide them to the complete development organizations. Let's say we are 1,000 engineers working with this system. Then this becomes extremely important for us to give them the ability to experience the product. We can't give them one system each. So that's, I would say, the main benefit at this point from VR systems.
But then you're in VR. Do you
or XR as well.
Okay, so it's mixed reality type of perspectives. Yeah, good. So generating a world autonomously. You mentioned a bit about how to do that in Maya, etc. How would you like to see the future evolving?
We see very interesting things happening in the field of AI. Artificial intelligence is coming into, maybe it's a thing that people have seen, this text-to-image prompts, for example, where you're able to type something crazy and then just allow the AI to generate a solution for that as an image. And that's also now coming to 3D. So being able to just type something, whatever it is, and the AI figures out and actually builds a 3D model out of that. And to see that type of communication between a human and an artificial intelligence together building virtual worlds and being able to generate content basically as fast as you can think about it. So you imagine it, you talk to the computer rather than doing all of the complex manipulation that you would do with mice and keyboard. And well, that's the way I think to democratize the creation process for building all kinds of AR content, all kinds of VR content that we're going to need for the metaverse, all kinds of educational content. I think that's a fascinating topic and something that I keep going on about inside RISE. We need to build what would a Swedish VR school look like, right? Let's get there. And that's going to be a lot of content. And there's going to be a lot of people, including the students, that want to tweak those lectures and do things with that. They need to have an interface that is extremely intuitive for that to happen.
But then it's really AR-generated content that you're describing here. If we come to sort of scanning the environment and recreating that, I expect that would kind of generate quite a lot of data here and pose challenges to the network. And potentially you can offload the compute of generating this type of data, even if it's an AI taking the scanned input and then creating a 3D model that to be used in a network in the future or experienced and consumed by consumers.
Exactly.
All of this is really interesting, but do we believe that people would actually sort of adopt these kind of thing on a mass market? Mikael, could you elaborate a bit on that?
Yes, so I think, first of all, when we ask people about this, we do consumer research in ConsumerLab in Ericsson, actually, and a lot of people, when they hear about the metaverse, for example, some people react and say, I don't want to be in a cocoon in a matrix world and not move around at all. So this idea of VR is quite different. So if you think about the metaverse from a VR perspective, it has very obvious use cases. A lot of gamers love it, but and for social communication, some people who try it, they also really love it. Like maybe you do, I do. But when you start thinking about AR, the mass market opportunity becomes easier for people to grasp, and also the idea of a metaverse built on AR. So rather than having this virtual world that you step into, you have this sort of physical world that has some, let's say, digital additions on top of it. A lot of people have tried playing Pokemon Go on their phone, and they've tried the AR thing and say, yeah, it's nice, but it's kind of cumbersome and it's kind of more of a gimmicky kind of thing. But of course, if I could actually have a pair of glasses on and see that Pokemon running around, then it makes a lot of sense to me. So then you have a lot of mass market interest in those kinds of things. Technically speaking, and if you start talking about compute offload and so on, I think VR and AR are, we sort of call them collectively XR, but they are actually very different technologies. So in VR, maybe the focus is more on rendering, whereas in AR, we need to move also the AI part into understanding what's the physical world like, and we need to update that very much. And then we can't just, we had a bit of a discussion about how much data you can collect, but actually you need to then update just the difference between what was there before, and that becomes a new challenge when it comes to compute offload, of course. Do you do that on the device? Do you do it in the network, for example?
Yeah. And it could depend on network conditions what is the best.
But I think when we think about the mass market, longer term, AR is probably the easier opportunity, so to speak.
When will we see this then?
Well, I think we're in a very interesting phase right now, because right now we talked about, someone mentioned mixed reality, I think a couple of you did, and right now we are seeing headsets that have full color video pass-through. So it's not full AR, But we're getting to a point, they're still a bit expensive, but they're getting to a point where you can start sort of, you see the physical world through video, and you can paste digital content into that. And that's easier, technically speaking, to do. So I think we're right now in a very interesting phase. Maybe in another few years, we will have AR glasses that are still going to be big, but actually quite functional. So that will be interesting to see. Then people say they have to be really small to become popular in the consumer market. But I'm not sure if I can see one here, but if you look at the headphones that people are wearing today, they're like Mickey Mouse ears. You know? So, you know, maybe the cyberpunk fashion or something, who knows? It can happen faster than we think.
Yep. Very interesting.
We saw the same thing with mobile phones, actually.
Yeah,
they were super small for a while.
Yeah, and now they're
yeah, definitely. It will be definitely really interesting to see where this comes. And all of these applications, we would like them to be mobile, right? What do you see, Magnus, as the biggest challenge to meet these demands from a network perspective?
One thing that strikes me in this discussion is that we talk about mobility from a user perspective. I mean, we are quite good at building mobile networks, but we also actually talk about application mobility in this, because we need to have applications follow us in the network in order to have low latency and so forth. So mobility on two ends of the radio, it needs to be there in order to bring down latency and ensure a good. But I mean, I think that technology isn't really an issue here. I think that what will, for at least for us, it will be adoption, as we talked about here. When is the market there? And for the consumer side, it will be convenience in the end. There will be an early market with big phones, but to have mass adoption, you need to have convenience and a good business model around it so that it can take off. I believe, you know, that these type of services will probably see an early market in the B2B side. For, I mean, working from home, working from on a distance, or new types of meeting applications and what have you. And enterprises are more willing to spend early in the market, I think, if you can save somewhere else. So that is probably a early market for these type of services, if it can be good value creation in the end, because that will be in the end. So, but I think it's often not technology. I think we have technology, we have networks, we have you know, good research, we have ideas and so forth. But it is understanding when the market takes off and user convenience in the end that will be the drivers, I think. Good applications.
Good applications,
yeah,
definitely.
Something that's way more than what we have today. Like one thing that we see with the introduction of the iPhone, for example, was one of those things where you had this fundamental shift. No one really picked up the iPhone and then said, "Okay, that was kind of cool, but maybe I'll go back to my old phone." But still, we see that in, for example, VR, where people put on the glasses and they go, "Oh, this was amazing," but also, "No, I'm not going to use it on a day-to-day basis." So we need to see that type of shift, and perhaps, adopted through companies first and be that early adopter, and then as we go along, have lighter and lighter devices to be able to really make this shift. But then again, back to the user content, the actual consumption, what you get, the value you get, is going to have to be that much higher of a jump from the mobile and the introduction of iPhone, for example, smartphones.
And what? Sorry.
I just wanted very quickly about the interface. So we use a VR environment on a daily basis in my research unit. And in the beginning, when we met virtually, then in a virtual room, people started talking about what's good and what's bad. And then one person said, there's one thing I would like to have from the Teams application we normally use. And I asked, okay, what's that? Well, you know, in Teams you have this hand that you can press a button hand, and it raises a hand so I can get attention. And then I asked that person, "How did you get my attention now?" I raised my hand. Oh, I raised my hand. So the power of a new user interface is very important.
Yeah, definitely. Peter, I wanted to ask you, coming from Volvo, what would you really like to see happen in this space to enable your company to be more productive?
Yeah. Many of these changes are coming related to very simple stuff. Just to give a completely different example, but relating, is the introduction of the Swish and Bank ID. That's nothing to do with AI or anything like that. It's just basic organization of identities, so I could tell someone I'm me and you are you. And this enables a lot of stuff. And coming to a company where we are producing all kinds of products, we need to organize our data so we know that what kind of data is to be used here. Just to give you a super simple example, we wanted to build a washer wiper virtually, like super simple, because we have the CAD models, we have everything. It should have taken like 2 hours to do that, but it took almost 3 weeks. And the reason is we don't have kinetic data any place in Volvo on how the arm is actually moving. We know that it moves, but not actually how it moves. So stupid things like that take a lot of time. And if you multiply all those stupid points, then you get a lot of loss.
There is a comment here.
I think that just to take this a step further to make this happen, I think that just us around the panel we represents different competences, and I think that really. If we sit down with you in Volvo, we will find ideas of things that we could not solve if we were thinking alone. So creating more of these type of think tanks and also innovation projects to try to influence each other to bring out new value creation, I think, especially in the B2B side, is a really good method to break new ideas and to use technology that is probably already there in a good way. So mix up, ensure that you build the ecosystems and share your knowledge and ensure that you can inspire each other. I mean, that's the way that we work in Telia Innovation, that we really want to influence others with our competence, and we want to be influenced with their needs so that we can find this value creation in the end. So working together, I think, is really the answer to bringing or shortening time to market for new services.
And this aligns very well with what we want to do at RISE.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Connect us all and solve the same problems together rather than everyone trying to solve them by themselves.
Now we're having some questions from the audience.
We have lots of questions from the audience. Do you have time for a few? So, extended reality needs good connectivity, yet half of the world's population has access to the internet, and it's still slow and expensive in some regions of the world. How can we address this infrastructure gap, is the question.
Is that for?
I think that in Sweden we don't have that actually problems, and I think that, but it is a bigger question, I think, than for
This
me.
was not about Sweden; it's about the rest of the world.
And I really can't take that hat on. It's too big for me. I think I can't answer on a global perspective.
What about you? I mean, Volvo, you have presence in.
Yeah, but we have fairly massive communication systems.
So it's your own proprietary system.
So we are down to latencies of 10, could be 15, 20 milliseconds, something. Can't remember.
Is this a problem?
Quite decent.
I can just elaborate. I mean, what is important is that we use same standards and technology so that we can use and be global and mobile. So working with companies like Ericsson and others to ensure that we work with standards. That is one way of when connectivity comes to a place that haven't had it before, they will have the same capabilities as we do here and in other places. So.
Okay. There is also a question sort of on the nature of XR and VR. How do they differ? How does extended reality and virtual reality differ in the multisensory nature of experiences? It's for somebody who does not really envisage perhaps what extended reality is.
Yeah, I try to give the comparison. So if you think about virtual reality, it's very much like the Matrix movie. So you are in a virtual world. Your body is somewhere else than you are. You believe that you're in a new world. So that's virtual reality. And then you have augmented reality, which augments the physical world. So you have a physical world, but maybe the water in this is actually digital. So when
Pokemon Go has been a very good example of AR.
And then you have everything in between. So when we say mixed reality, it's kind of, somewhere in between those endpoints. So that's, I think, the way. And so, but the focus here is then we may have a mixed reality, but we don't want to have a mixed experience. So very quickly about the network question there. Of course, you can do a lot locally on a device. So it doesn't mean that you have to have new networks to do any kind of XR. You can do XR very well today, but for some applications, maybe it's better if you would want to do them for a longer time that you have a better network so you can offload some of it.
Okay.
But it doesn't have to be just in the best networks. I think that's very important, actually.
This last question is about services and applications and experiences. I think it reflects a little bit the nature of this, the composition of this panel. How do we ensure ethnic minorities and women are at the forefront of the development of future technology, of extended reality, mixed reality?
That's by providing opportunities, obviously, for education, obviously providing a way that we bring all people into this together.
How important is this question for you at RISE, for example?
Very. Like, one of the things that we really want to do is have a much tighter collaboration with game development companies, for example. So Epic and the whole industry, Swedish games industry, which is vast and very good. And we see a discussion and debates very much in the forefront of this area. So we want to make sure that we can create that type of space together and do more incentives to make the virtual
raise
world
the
more
representation,
diverse.
broaden the representation.
Yes.
We need to end there.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, for contributing to this panel, adding a little bit of sci-fi at the end of the day. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.